Hello, everybody. Welcome to this interview with a very important man in the world of culture. We're going to talk about reaffirming the importance of culture. It's the title of our roundtable with our guest who's live with us from Aix-en-Provence. I myself am in Paris. And we're going to try and understand how COVID has created such upheaval in the world of culture. In many trades, professions. It's upset many of our certitudes as well. Pierre Audi is in Aix-en-Provence. The 2020 Festival of Aix-en-Provence was due to be absolutely outstanding. This evening, we're going to have a worldwide premiere of the film Innocence by Kaye Sarayo, which it's a magnificent show, but of course, COVID-19 stepped in, and there will not be the live performance this evening. So, as is the case with many festivals, there will be hundreds of artists, musicians, and technicians who have nothing to do because they're not allowed to do their job. So, we can be a little bit worried about what's going to happen in the world of the arts in the coming months and years. Pierre Audi, of course, you're very familiar with that world. Just in a nutshell, I can't go through your entire biography. I invite people to check you out on internet and in the program. You've got so much experience, but you were born in Beirut. You went to school in Paris. You studied at the University of Oxford. You ran theatres in London and the Dutch National Opera. So you have lived in many different countries. You've travelled all over the place. You've also ran theatres in London. Now you're in Aix. You've worked with many artists, opera singers, musicians, but also the visual artists from the visual arts. And as a youngster, you founded a film club and you invited some speakers, including Pier Paolo Pasolini and Jacques Tati. So hello to you, Pierre Audi. You're in Aix-en-Provence. Yes, that's right. I'm in Aix. In theory, you should have been a bit nervous right now because of the premiere performance of the opera this evening. That's not the case. I just want to know what your state of mind is. Are you sad? Are you finding it difficult to get over that? Or on the contrary, are you still optimistic? And if so, how do you keep your optimism? It's a planetary catastrophe. And this is perhaps one of the only times in our lives that everybody on the planet is facing that same problem. COVID-19 has connected us all around the planet, and we realize how small our world is. There have been so many cancellations of so many shows and performances around the world. A lot of shows have been cancelled in different cities other than X. So, of course, we're disappointed, but we have to accept this. And I very quickly tried to dream up some kind of festival back in the month of March. We wanted to do some rehearsals for some of the shows. But cancellation became inevitable once the president of France declared lockdown. And because we set the bar very high in March, we were, in fact, able to hang on to certain elements. But that's digitally, thanks to digital technologies. We don't have live audiences, and we have strict controls for health. The opera we were talking about, Innocence, which was supposed to be performed for the first time this evening, well, we're currently carrying out our rehearsals here in Aix. We'll be rehearsing up until the 14th of July. There's going to be a premiere with the piano, not with the orchestra or anything, but we're working with our artists to try and do as much as we can. We have a digital stage in a digital festival which begins on Monday, and we are going to present all of the recitals, several concerts, artists who were due to be in the festival. They've all come to Aix. We filmed their performances, their concerts, their recitals, and we have created a digital festival here in Aix. So we have managed to replace the real festival with a digital festival, and I'm quite proud of that. And we'll be able to watch those performances on the television channel Arte here in France, and on internet too. Pierre, Audi, having met many musicians around the globe, many have been very shaken by what's been going on, not only in economic terms. How can one earn a living when you're not playing your instrument, when you're a musician, when you're not singing, when you're a singer, when you're not acting as an actor? Many performers are saying, well, what can we learn from COVID in our sector, as in other areas of life? So should we perhaps focus on the local scale, rather than going on tour to Tokyo via Los Angeles and Sydney, Mexico, and Madrid? Perhaps it would be better to take a fresh look at how we promote and carry out the arts, focusing on the local stage to kind of look inwards. How do you view that? You've worked in many countries. You're very cosmopolitan. I must admit that I'm slightly disturbed by the frenzy. The interpreter apologizes. The reception is poor in the booth, and it's not possible to translate. Nous sommes désolés, la réception cabine ne permet pas la traduction. J'essaie de reprendre. We are trying to calm things down. It's not a bad thing. And we must continue our work, very cosmopolitan approach. I think there are some changes that must be made. We've learned a lot from the experience here in Aix. The interpreter apologizes, but the video is not getting through. It's very important. Travel is important. Moving around is very important. You can't replace real-life shows by digital shows. You need your audience. So we're going to have to find a new kind of equilibrium. Let's not forget that in all walks of life, including opera, as you said earlier on when we were preparing our interview, the history of opera in the United States would not have existed without travel, without exchanging with Europe. Well, that's exactly right. Opera in the United States is around because of all of the European stars that traveled over there and took their art to the United States. There are many other examples as well. All kinds of art has been impacted by travel. Even in the olden days when people would travel by boat. I think that artists may need to concentrate their activities. We need to perhaps take a fresh look at how things are done. We need to keep working internationally. We want our artists to be present for longer periods of time, for example. I'm sure there will be new ideas that will come to the fore. What do we need to do? Make better choices? Be more selective in the projects we undertake? It's a bit early to say for the X Festival to say about what we're going to do in the future. Our activity takes place over a number of days, a number of weeks. However, the ironic thing is that I've been thinking of a different type of festival since 2019. And coming to X, I thought I'd work with fewer artists. And it's a new way of working. And this new way of working has enabled me to save the shows. We've got the same conductors. We've got the same artists who have come. So this idea of concentration is a good one. It seems to be working. We're not a market here. We are a place a residence, if you like, where the artists can come and enhance their work. And that's just the way things are panning out. It's like Avignon Festival, for example. That's how it grew because artists came back year after year. They became very loyal. And in the world of opera, there's a very strong feeling, this loyalty. And the audience needs that. The audience needs to understand the work of different conductors, different performers in different roles. And that's how X Festival actually began. It's been going around for decades now. There was a tiny group of artists that would come back every year to perform Mozart operas. And there was a very intimate approach. It was very charming, very poetic, and that was the foundation on which the festival was founded. So we will be able to have an international status. We will be able to hear a lot more French artists, for example, and we can exchange. But it is still a little bit early to talk about that. I believe that we have to see what emerges. We can't force anything. We have to see what happens. But I do have great confidence that we'll be able to get through this crisis. So for you, you're optimistic in these rather dull times. You're not navel gazing. You want to avoid that temptation to just close in on a local shell. Yes, indeed. Art has to remain attractive. The festival has to be full of energy and enthusiasm, and that is the case. And we are going to be able to do this digital festival. And we look forward to future versions of our festival here in Aix. And we're sure that the audience will come back and the festival here in Aix will survive. A couple of questions, Pierre Audity, from our listeners. I'd like to put one of these questions to you, Pierre Audi. A question from Robin, who writes that big sociologists such as George Bataille, say that it's thanks to thanks to celebrations that society gets together and unites. Do we need more effervescence? Do we need more parties and more festivities to help society through? Culture, in my mind, is the only way to heal after the tragedy we've all been through, because it's very ritualistic. And culture has an impact on everything we do in life. It enables us to get out and about, to learn, and music in particular because of its mystery, can inspire people to survive, quite simply, and to move on, to get over it, and to be entertained. And seeing instrument players, musicians who are there playing live is such a wonderful thing. You hear the sound, and when you're at the opera, you hear the orchestra, the voices, the staging. It's all very complex, and it's absolutely magical. And I hope that we'll be able to witness such shows again very, very soon. These months are seeming long, but let's look at it as a kind of breathing space, if you like, and in the future we'll get back together and we'll appreciate these works of art all the more after the silence of this breathing space. But I really am looking forward to the post-COVID period. Yes, of course. We have to get through all this. The title of our meeting here, Aix sur Seine, Aix on the River Seine, if you like, because a lot of the action is up in Paris this week, rather than in Aix as it usually is. Culture's always acted. So the title of our conference is Acting, Taking Action. The world of culture has always taken action. Do you think that works of art will be born out of this experience out of the COVID experience? Will works of art be born out of the confinement and the worries and concerns? Well, that's quite possible. I think that writers isolated themselves. Just think of Beckett, for example. I directed an opera on one of Beckett's works, and he would, isolate himself so that he could write. And I think that artists don't necessarily want to talk about tragedy, and they probably won't after the COVID. They're probably looking for poetry to surprise the audience after the COVID period, to wipe away all of the darkness and the sadness that we've been through. I think it's the best way of recounting our experiences. I think after the confinement is over, I think the audiences have to be given new treats, excitement. I think and we'll be able to give some kind of meaning to what we've been through thanks to art and culture. Some will look towards Mozart, others towards Shakespeare, but all roads lead to Rome, as we know, and I'm sure all roads will be leading to culture. So we will have something to say about what we've experienced. So confinement isn't what harms the artist the most. What harms the artist is not being able to perform their art. A writer is used to confinement and can lock themselves away to do their writing. A dancer can isolate themselves for practice, and so it's the same for musicians. But then they have to look forward to what happens after those rehearsals, once they've isolated themselves, to do their prep work. There you're talking about performers, singers, actors, musicians, the conductor of the orchestra. And they need the oxygen that the audience brings them. They need to communicate with the audience. If well, at the moment they're deprived of that, so it's worrying for them. Fragile culture is now seen as being rather fragile on an economic front, but also in artistic terms, professional terms. It's a very complex subject, and we need to be able to do as much as we can in the given conditions. The situation is complicated, but I think we have to remain as humane as possible. The artists will be able to go back on stage to sing, dance, play their instruments, and they will change our lives once again. Thank you very much, Pierre, Audi. We're at the end of our interview. This evening, if you go on to the website of our economic meeting here in Aix, there's a Carmen, performance of Carmen, which is visible on our website. Carmen, have you seen that version of Carmen that's going to be on the internet this evening? Would you recommend it to us? It's a wonderful production, really surprising, very contemporary, so poetic, so intelligent. You really have to stay to the very end, enjoy the suspense. And yes, this version of Carmen is absolutely amazing. The viewers will have a wonderful time in terms of the music they'll be hearing and in terms of the performances they will see on stage. Yes, I've seen this version. It's there's a real switch. The performers have really pulled out all the stops. Thank you very much for answering our questions. Good luck to you for the Digital X Festival, and we'll be following it on our radio station. And there's going to be a lot of digital productions to keep that festival alive. And good luck.